Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. Today we have one more set of great revenge stories. But before we start, if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. And our first story is, screw me over the day I'm supposed to start a job? Enjoy your worst sales year in decades. Background. A few years ago, I worked in the wine industry and traveled to Australia to try and broaden my experience of the industry, as well as of life, and try out living abroad for a while. I also knew the pay there was vastly higher than what it was in my home at the time in the UK. I had quite a bit of experience, a decent CV/resume, great qualifications in the industry and academically, and I was young and eager. At the time, I had a one-year work visa, but this could have been extended to 2 or longer depending on the employer. I applied for loads of jobs. Many were listed on the various employment websites, industry-specific ones. Gumtree, if I liked the sound of it, I applied for it. I also wrote to various wineries in the area that I really liked with my CV and various details. I got a lot of replies, but one of my favorites got back to me. They put me in touch with their hiring manager. I was stoked to have an interview with one of my favorite wineries in the region for a sales rep job. I drove to the winery, met with the hiring manager, and had the interview of my life. I nailed it. To this day, I've never had a better interview. I met the winery manager, got along great. At the end of the interview, the hiring manager told me I was a shoo-in, and they'd be in touch shortly to let me know if I got the job, followed by a very reassuring wink/nod. The very next day, I got a phone call saying they'd be delighted to have me as their regional sales rep, and we discussed a start date. The winery was several hours out of the city, so I had to move quite a distance, rent an apartment, buy a car, and so on. This cost me the vast majority of the savings I'd accumulated back home before the move. A few days before the starting date, I give them a call to let them know I moved in and am looking forward to starting, and to ask if they wouldn't mind if I came along a few days before just to get a better lay of the land, etc. They said the owners went around, so don't bother coming in, but call again tomorrow. I did, and again, the owners weren't around. I was due to start on Monday, so I figured, oh well, I guess I'll meet them then. So I showed up bright and early, 20 minutes early on the first day, ready to meet the crew and get started. I walked around until I found someone, as the cellar door and main areas weren't open yet. They told me to hang around until someone showed up. Eventually, the general winery manager appears, and when I say I'm supposed to be meeting with him, the hiring manager, and the owners today, his eyes widen. He goes a little white. Then after some, he lets me know they aren't ready today and need a few more days to sort things out, but to call back in the afternoon to find out when I'm really supposed to start. I call back. It goes to voicemail. I leave a voicemail saying, hey, it's no worries. Let me know which day this week you'd like me to start. I call the hiring manager I'd spoken to before. It goes to voicemail. 2 more days pass, and I'm starting to get irritated. I want to start work. I call the hiring manager again, who picks up. I'm as civil as I can be, but I do ask why I haven't been called back. She lets me know that the owners have changed their minds and don't want to hire me anymore. She admitted this was pretty crappy, as she'd been trying to convince them to take me. But they had issues with the fact that I was a temporary worker and wouldn't be there for more than 2 years. I let her know that there were options for extending my ability to stay in the country, etc. She said she knew, but they were adamant. I was pretty PO'd at this point, so I decided to call them directly. Their number was easy to find, so I called them and left a voicemail asking them to call me back, and another voicemail a day later, all the time remaining as polite as I could. Eventually, I called them from Skype with no number, and they actually picked up. I asked why they no longer wanted to hire me and tried to explain that they could apply for an extension/sponsorship if they liked having me. Then came the line, we just don't want a pommy working for us, plain and simple, mate. You jerks. This had nothing to do with the sponsorship thing. You just don't like Brits? I'm not even a pom. This is typically slang reserved for English. I'm Scottish. I terminate my lease, cancel my internet, and drive back to the coast, about 2,000 Australian dollars in the hole, not including the price of the car, fuel, food, time wasted, etc. Revenge. PO'd, but at this point desperate for money, I stay at a hostel and begin job hunting again. This time, there's a pretty great job as a regional manager and buyer for a decently sized chain of liquor stores. This is a little beyond my previous experience, but F it, I go for it. I get the job, and suddenly, I'm responsible for 7 stores and the purchases they make. 7 big stores that buy a lot of wine. When store managers make their weekly orders, it was done through an online system where the various products and quantities were put in. There was a short window between the order being submitted and the order actually going through to be fulfilled. I simply canceled each and every store's orders of the wines from that winery. I did that every single week until I left. Each store was ordering between 15 and 30 cases of this producer's wines per week, an average of about $6,000 per store in sales, closer to $4,000 per order per store. When the store manager saw that their stocks were dwindling or gone and asked me about it, I simply said that they'd changed their pricing and we can't afford to sell it right now. Every time their sales rep, who didn't know me, called to ask what the problem was, I just told him their product wasn't moving and we don't need any stock right now. He didn't think to even compare previous year's sales records. He'd have seen that there because the wine was great. It always sold well. I wasn't there long. I hated that job, the hours, and the stress of taking care of 7 freaking stores and their problems, but the revenge was sweet. After 4 months, I packed it in, and I reckon their crappy attitude cost them over $400,000 in sales. I could have made that for them if they'd hired me. And our second story. Don't like homeless people in your fast food restaurant? Let's send a few hundred. So a bit after college, I took a part-time volunteer position at a community shelter helping the area's homeless. I was a caseworker. Basically, we met with everyone once a week and made sure they're doing what they need to do. Job interviews, saving money, because the ultimate goal is to get them into their own place. My job was to make sure they had everything they needed, bus passes, help with resumes, help teach them about bank accounts, and help them open one once they found a job, etc. Work with local salons to get them free haircuts for work, etc. Really cool local community shelter that wasn't just a place to sleep each night if they got in. We helped with everything and had a computer lab and classes, etc. for resumes and interviews. So I'm the point of contact for kind of all their issues. I'm not a therapist, but they open up to me a lot and ask for help or what could I do to help them. And that was my job, connecting them with people or resources that they need. Over the course of about a month, I keep hearing the local McDonald's down the road, like half a block away, is routinely asking people in my caseload to leave, not come back. They don't need homeless people begging here. I was pretty shocked. We provide everything. It might not be the best food, but we make sure they eat 3 solid meals a day. It really messes with them for a place to discriminate against them, and I definitely wasn't happy. I go down to talk to the local manager, and sure enough, she doesn't want them in there. Not because they don't buy stuff, they definitely do, but she just seems to not like homeless people. Well, my position has me reach out to corporations, local businesses and such, seek donations of services or goods to help these people. So I went ahead and reached out to McDonald's corporate. I outlined what we do, gave them numbers, and we actually really do manage to help the majority of people that stay in our shelter obtain employment and an apartment. I told them a lot of people that go out for interviews don't manage to make it back for meal times, and if they would ever be so willing to help us by providing vouchers or something to get these people a meal while they're out, it would help a lot. McDonald's corporate and the PR person I began working with really liked this idea and wanted to help us, so they sent us a ton of never-expiring coupons. They wanted me to provide other shelters information so they could reach out and help there also. When I say they sent a lot, I mean a few thousand coupons, more than we could reasonably use in 2 or 3 years. I was told when we need more, just shoot them an email or a phone call. So what did I do? I began giving coupons out with bus passes to people going for haircuts, interviews, work, everything. I sent more people to that McDonald's than ever went there before. She continued to be fairly rude and scrutinized the coupons to the point she turned a few away. Big mistake, lady. I called my corporate PR contact and told him the program's working great, but the local manager is discriminating against the homeless who have valid coupons. One thing large corporations hate is when local managers go on power trips and get in the way of their efforts to help people, especially when it's great PR and almost costs them nothing. I was called back the next day to be told that no one will be bothered by her again, and her views did not align with those of corporate, and they apologized even more. And guess what? Sent us out even better coupons for even better meals. Never did hear from anyone I was working with again about her. No idea where she went or what the local franchise did with her. And our last short story. A lady almost hit the front of my car trying to pull into a parking spot I was turning into, so I just sat there. So I'm at Costco in need of dog food, and it's ridiculously busy for a Monday. Barely any parking spots, until I spot one at the end of the lot. I make my way down the aisle, and I'm about to turn into the parking spot when a lady runs over the curb and almost hits me to take the spot. Thankfully, I tapped my brakes in time, or she would have taken off my bumper. I look up, and she's shaking her head and wagging her finger in a no motion at me. WTF? I was like, okay, I'll just wait for her to back up since I'm obviously turning into the spot. She doesn't. My girlfriend's with me and was PO'd that the lady wasn't budging. I gave her my Costco card and just sat in the aisle in a face-off with this lady. She goes inside, gets the dog food, comes back out, loads up the car. She then pushes the cart into the spot we were waiting for and hops in the car. The look on the woman's face was enough to give me satisfaction for a week. She had to get out and move the cart so she could park once I reversed through the entire aisle. Worth it. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video to the end, and I'll see you in the next one.